The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. Mix pleasure with pain. Let the other person feel your love and then take a few steps back. Once you do that, they will be ready to do anything to please you again and win your love. In this book summary, you will learn several such techniques. Is there someone you feel extremely attracted to, but it may be that this person is so busy in their life that they never even notice you? This book teaches you how to draw that person's trust and attention toward yourself. It shows you how to make them move according to your signals. For this, you don't need to prepare any magical drink or seek help from a fairy. You also don't need beauty, money, or power, because the effect of these things lasts only for a short time. Seduction is a mind game, and if you master this art, you can attract any man or woman toward yourself. Lesson number 1. Choose the right victim. The Vicomte de Valmont used to seduce young girls and married women in Paris. He could win over any woman he desired. Because of this, he had started to feel bored. No woman in Paris was a challenge for him anymore. He could attract anyone with ease. So, in search of adventure, he decided to leave Paris for a few days and stay with his aunt. He arrived at his aunt's villa, where several other guests were staying as well. One of them was Présidente de Tourvel. She was a 22-year-old married woman. Her husband was away on a work assignment. Valmont had heard about Tourvel. She was very beautiful and extremely loyal to her husband. Despite this, Valmont found himself attracted to her. Tourvel went to church every morning, and Valmont began to follow her there. Even during dinner, he would secretly steal glances at her. While the women of Paris were always conscious of how they looked, Tourvel was completely different. She paid no attention to her clothes or appearance. She did not even realize what effect her beauty was having on Valmont. This only made him even more excited. It was summer, so Tourvel wore only simple white linen dresses, which made her attractive figure even more noticeable. Valmont could not take his eyes off her. He seemed to be completely lost in her. Valmont decided to stay there for a few more days. His aunt was very happy to hear this, although she had no idea about the real reason. Valmont had made up his mind to seduce Tourvel. She had started to feel like a challenge to him. If he succeeded, it would prove that he was an exceptional seducer. The problem was that Tourvel had already heard a lot about Valmont. She knew about his bad reputation and did not want to fall into his trap. That is why she was careful never to be alone with Valmont. To gain her trust, Valmont began going to church with her. He told Tourvel that he had completely changed. One day, before taking his seduction any further, Valmont decided to test Tourvel. This would give him a hint as to whether his seduction was working or not, and whether Tourvel was starting to take an interest in him. Valmont invited his aunt and Tourvel to go for a walk in the garden. He deliberately chose a path they never usually took. He knew ahead there was a small ditch where water often collected. Since both women were wearing gowns, he would have to hold their hands to help them cross to the other side. When they reached that spot, Valmont said that the view on the other side was extremely beautiful. If they didn't see it, then coming all this way would be pointless. To help them cross, he extended his hand. First, he helped his aunt across. Now it was Tourvel's turn. This was the very moment Valmont had been waiting for. His intention was to hold her in such a way that her foot would slip and she would tightly cling to him. And that is exactly what happened. As she lost her balance, Tourvel fell into Valmont's arms. Valmont could hear her heart beating rapidly. When he looked at her face, it had turned red with embarrassment. At that moment, he understood that seducing Tourvel would not be difficult. Very soon, she would be drawn toward him. So what do you think was the reason Tourvel became Valmont's victim? First, she had grown bored with her life. Perhaps she herself did not realize that she was searching for an adventure. Second, she was innocent and naive. She was not a seducer, so she had no idea about the game Valmont was playing. She felt a sense of emptiness within herself, and Valmont made her believe that he could fill that void. Do not rush to achieve your target. You can create tension between yourself and the victim. This makes seduction even stronger. And most importantly, before moving forward, you should look for hints. You must find out whether the other person has even a little interest in you or not. If yes, then you should deepen the seduction further.
Lesson number 2. Approach indirectly. Anne-Marie was a queen in 17th century France. Her grandfather was King Henry IV. Her family had considered many marriage proposals for her, but all of them were merely political deals. Anne had never found anyone who truly loved her. She had turned 42, yet she was still unmarried. One day at the royal court, she met a brave soldier. His name was Marquis Antonin. He looked quite ordinary, and his height was also somewhat short. However, stories of his bravery had impressed everyone. Anne knew that he was skilled at seducing women, yet she could not stop herself from wanting to know more about him. Over the next few days, they crossed paths several times at the court, and conversations began between them. Anne wrote in her diary that her conversations with the Marquis were the most special and memorable moments of her day. They became good friends. Very soon, the Marquis became her confidant, and she began sharing her secrets with him. He also started giving her advice on many matters. Anne became convinced that she had fallen in love with the Marquis. Now she wanted to know what was in his heart. So in a roundabout way, she asked the Marquis for advice regarding her marriage. The search for a suitable match for Anne was still ongoing. She asked the Marquis which of the men would be the best choice to become her husband. Anne was expecting him to feel jealous. She thought this was the perfect moment for the Marquis to confess his feelings, but she was shocked when she realized that the Marquis did not seem to care at all. Instead, he asked her, "Why are you suddenly talking about marriage? You are happy on your own. Why do you even need anyone? And anyway, none of these men are worthy of you." Anne was deeply hurt by his response. Several months later, the king's brother's wife passed away. King Louis offered Anne the proposal of becoming his brother's second wife. Anne did not like this idea at all. She shared this with the Marquis and asked for his advice. The Marquis told her that she should remain loyal to the king and serve him in every possible way. Once again, Anne felt disappointed by his answer. Things became even worse when the Marquis stopped talking to her altogether. He suddenly distanced himself from Anne. It seemed as if he no longer wanted to remain her friend. Anne informed the king of her decision that she did not want to marry his brother. Then she went to the Marquis and handed him a paper, telling him that he could read it only the next morning. She said that the name of the person she truly loved was written on that paper. When the Marquis opened the paper, it had only 3 words written on it: "It is you." When Anne announced her engagement to the Marquis in the royal court, everyone was stunned. Anne was the second most powerful woman in France, yet she had chosen an ordinary soldier. Now no one could change her mind. So, do you understand what happened? In reality, the Marquis was one of history's most remarkable and great seducers. First, he awakened Anne's interest, then drew him toward himself and stirred her emotions. Once he had captured her attention, he began to show less interest and stepped back. This made Anne restless, and she fell into his web of seduction. By marrying Anne, he gained immense wealth and power. Seduction was his masterstroke. When he first spoke to Anne, he immediately understood that she was becoming attracted to him. The Marquis used the promise of friendship to grow closer to her. By becoming her friend, he earned her trust and tried to show that he was not after her money, status, or sex. He was confident that slowly but surely Anne would fall in love with him. The second step of seduction is to deepen friendship. By doing this, your target becomes comfortable with you. They also start to feel a little insecure. Because you are not crossing any obvious boundaries, they will never understand your hidden intentions and will begin to trust you. Then you must make this friendship even deeper. Eventually, a time will come when they start feeling an urge to know whether this relationship can become something more than just friendship. But let them take the first step. Let them live under the illusion that they are controlling the situation. The truth, however, is known only to you, who really holds the control.
Lesson number 3. Send mixed signals. August was a prince of Prussia. He was 24 years old and the nephew of Frederick the Great. He had traveled all over France and had seduced nearly every young woman there. One day, he decided to visit the villa of Madame de Staël, a famous French writer. Madame de Staël warmly welcomed August and introduced him to all her guests. After that, everyone moved to the drawing room for coffee. They were discussing Napoleon's war strategies and the latest fashion trends in Paris. Suddenly, the door opened. A stunningly beautiful woman of about 30 entered the room. Her name was Madame Recamier, a close friend of Staël. She greeted the prince, introduced herself, and then went upstairs to her room. August had heard a lot about her. She was one of the most admired and talked about women in France. Countless men were crazy about her. Her face was nothing less than a masterpiece for artists. She was so beautiful that painters longed not only to paint her face, but even her feet. When she danced at ballroom parties wearing a white dress, all eyes remained fixed on her. She could effortlessly draw everyone's attention towards herself. Although the prince usually preferred younger women, Recamier's charm cast a spell on him. Seeing her suddenly in front of him, he could do nothing but stare. He thought she was even more beautiful than people described. On one hand, she appeared attractive and sweet, while on the other, she was deeply mysterious, and this very mystery made August restless. At dinner, August watched her closely. She was completely silent, her eyes lowered. Once or twice, she raised her eyes and looked directly into the prince's eyes. August's happiness knew no bounds. Now he was becoming even more attracted to her. After dinner, everyone gathered in the gallery. Recamier began playing a musical instrument and started singing a romantic song along with it. Her voice was so enchanting that anyone who listened would get lost in it. There was an innocence on her face. From time to time, she glanced at August. There was a strange intoxication in her eyes. August felt very confused, yet he was completely mesmerized and could not take his eyes off her. After that night, he decided to stay there for a few more days. Over the next few days, they became friends. They started going on walks together. Occasionally, they attended dance parties and went boating, and they began talking to each other late into the night. They began enjoying each other's company. The prince was still confused. Recamier mostly talked about spirituality and related topics, yet she would often touch August's hands. In the flow of conversation, she would also flirt with him. 2 weeks passed very quickly. Recamier continued sending mixed signals. August could no longer control himself and finally proposed to Recamier. At that time, August was the most eligible bachelor in Europe. There was a long line of women waiting for him. Still, he was ready to change himself completely just for Recamier. He was even willing to adopt her religion. Recamier said yes. Then they had to stay apart for a few days. August needed to inform his family about the decision. Recamier promised to wait for him. She said that in the meantime, she would arrange to separate from her older husband. After leaving, August wrote her many love letters, but Recamier did not reply even once. August started growing restless. Finally, one day, a reply from Recamier arrived. She refused to marry him. She also apologized, and with that, their affair came to an end. Recamier had never truly loved August. For her, August was just a victim, someone she successfully seduced. As she grew older, she kept adding even richer and more powerful men to her list. All of them became crazy about her, yet she never belonged to anyone. Mixed signals have a very strong effect. They create intense interest and mystery. If you want someone to become obsessed with you, you should show kindness and innocence, but also give hints through light flirting. This makes your target expect great pleasure and begin to long for you deeply. But remember, you must maintain some distance. Do not reveal everything about yourself openly. Present yourself like a mystery. Maintain suspense. Keep surprising your target. Let their restless mind be filled by their imagination of you. After that, reduce how often you meet them. If you give too much attention, they will get bored of you. Give them some space and let them ache with the desire to have you. Force them to come after you. Lesson number 4. Appear to be an object of desire. It is human nature to desire what others want. This is basic human psychology. If you truly want someone to be drawn toward you, the best strategy is to create a love triangle. The purpose of this is to show that there is someone else who also wants you. Create the idea that another person is longing to have you. When there is competition, your target begins to desire you even more. They start trying to prove to everyone that you belong to them and only them. But without competition, their interest in you may fade, or they might even start getting attracted to someone else. In Rome, there was a 32-year-old philosopher named Paul Rée. One day, he went to a salon. There, he saw Lou von Salome, a 21-year-old Russian woman who had come to Rome on vacation. Rée introduced himself, and the two talked throughout the night. Rée was very happy to discover that his thoughts about God and many other subjects were exactly the same as Salome's. She was intelligent and spoke thoughtfully. From time to time, she would look directly into Rée's eyes. There was a playful mischief in her gaze. Over the next few days, they went out together to explore the city. Salome learned that Rée was a friend of the famous philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. She told Rée that she was a fan of Friedrich and wanted to meet him. To impress Salome, Rée sent an invitation to Friedrich to come to Rome. Although Friedrich preferred to live in solitude, he agreed to come just to meet Salome. When Friedrich met Salome, he was instantly attracted to her. Rée became deeply upset by this. Now he constantly tried to find opportunities to spend time alone with Salome. Whenever he saw Salome and Friedrich together, he would burn with jealousy. He began to feel that since he had met Salome first, she belonged only to him. His thoughts became completely consumed with the idea of possessing her. A few days later, it was time for Salome to return to Russia. Rée asked her to travel with him to Germany. He did not even ask Friedrich, yet Friedrich insisted on joining them as well. Reluctantly, Rée had to take him along. During the journey, on one occasion, Salome and Friedrich went out together without Rée. Rée started to feel that something far more personal and intimate had developed between them. He was filled with rage. His desire to have Salome grew beyond all limits. She had become an obsession for him. In the end, Rée took his own life. Lesson number 5. Master the art of insinuation. To provoke or entice someone means to plant a seed of an idea in their mind without feeling guilty about it. This is an art where you only give hints, but your target feels that the thought is entirely their own. No suspicion ever falls on you. All the control remains in your hands. You make your target move according to your signals, yet you feel no guilt because in reality, you never gave a direct command or order. You only dropped a hint and your target took the action. Seductors are highly skilled in this art. They constantly draw their target toward themselves through subtle gestures and light hints, but they never push too hard.
This technique works like powerful magic, and the interesting thing is, you don't need to be a magician to use it. Let's understand this through a story. A young man named Erwan had a fight with his lover. They decided to meet at an opera show to fix things. Erwan waited for an hour for his girlfriend, but she never arrived. He remained seated alone. At that show, Madame de Rosamond was also present. She was a wealthy 40-year-old woman. When she saw Erwan sitting alone, she asked if she could sit beside him. After the show ended, she insisted that Erwan accompany her to the villa. Erwan did not even get the chance to ask where they were going. Rosamond walked toward her car, and Erwan followed her. Rosamond finally told him that they were going to her husband's villa. She explained that her relationship was going through a very difficult phase, and perhaps spending some time with Erwan would make things feel a little lighter. After driving some distance, she asked Erwan to look at the beautiful view outside the window. To do so, Erwan had to lean toward her. At that very moment, the car jolted sharply, and Erwan's hand landed on Rosamond's legs. Rosamond let his hand remain there for a few moments, then slowly shifted and sat properly. "Young man, are you trying to seduce me?" she asked, laughing. "No, not at all. It was just an accident. My hand touched you by mistake," Erwan replied, apologizing. A few minutes later, the car stopped. They had arrived at the villa. Rosamond's husband was standing there. He welcomed both of them. Erwan said, "Your house is very beautiful." "Oh, this is nothing. You should see the rooms inside. They are truly worth seeing." They all had dinner together. Rosamond's husband was very serious and quiet. After dinner, he left them alone and went to his room. Rosamond then invited Erwan to go for a walk with her in the garden. The weather was very pleasant. Above them, the clear sky was filled with shining stars and moonlight. Suddenly, Erwan felt Rosamond's hand in his. Rosamond said that she knew Erwan was very loyal to his girlfriend and that she would never take advantage of the situation. They talked at length about the opera show, music, and theater. Rosamond mentioned that there was a pavilion nearby that was worth seeing. It had grown quite dark, but somehow they found their way. Then they both went inside. Erwan could hear nothing except his own heartbeat. Rosamond said that she had many memories associated with that place. They sat down on a sofa. Erwan did not know what came over him, but he turned and kissed Rosamond. At first, Rosamond pulled away, but then she held Erwan tightly and began kissing him passionately. After a few moments, when she realized what was happening, she said that they should return to the villa. "It was a very special and beautiful evening," Rosamond said with a smile. "There is a very special and beautiful room in the villa too, but I will only show it to you if you promise not to lose control and to behave properly." Erwan did not fully understand what she meant, but he followed her. She took him to the room. Truly, it was very large and luxurious. Its decoration was remarkable. Erwan immediately understood that the room had been designed especially for pleasure and indulgence. Mirrors covered the walls. There was also a statue of the Greek god Eros. The room displayed many paintings depicting intimate moments between couples. What had begun in the pavilion had now gone far beyond in this room. They spent the night together, and they did not realize how time passed. A servant knocked at the door and informed them that it was already morning and her husband could wake up at any moment. As Erwan was leaving, Rosamond said, "Goodbye, young man. Thank you for a lovely and beautiful night." All the way back, Erwan kept thinking that he was supposed to be the seducer. Yes, it was true that Erwan had taken the first step, but the real truth was that he never realized when he had fallen into Rosamond's trap. She had compelled him to lose control, and she succeeded in obtaining the pleasure she desired, exactly as she had planned. Lesson number 6. Enter their spirit. Cindy Adams was an American journalist. In 1961, she got the opportunity to interview Indonesia's President Sukarno. This was a huge opportunity for her because she had just begun her career. At that time, Sukarno was extremely famous. He had played a leading role in freeing Indonesia from Dutch rule. He was elected president in 1949 and had remained in power since then. At that time, Sukarno was facing many problems because his reputation in the West was not good. Due to his foreign policies, he had been given the title the Hitler of Asia. He was strongly disliked in the United States. Cindy wanted the interview to be interesting, so she began with a joke. She was surprised when Sukarno liked the joke. This immediately lightened the atmosphere. After the interview, Cindy gave Sukarno many gifts. When she returned home to New York, she began receiving friendly letters from Sukarno. 3 years later, he asked her if she would help him write his autobiography. Cindy was very confused. She was not a well-known journalist, yet Sukarno had chosen her as a co-author. She began thinking about how the French had labeled him a great seducer. Sukarno had 4 wives, and stories of his thousands of affairs had often been discussed. Despite all this, Cindy accepted the offer because it was a major and extraordinary opportunity. Cindy decided that she would behave with Sukarno in the same way she had during their first meeting. They conducted their first interview for the book. Cindy started complaining to Sukarno about her hotel and told him that the staff there were very rude. Sukarno wrote a letter with clear instructions stating that Cindy must be given VIP treatment. For the next interview, Cindy had to travel to Sukarno's hometown so she could write about his childhood. This time, she complained about the flight. Sukarno arranged a private plane for her, along with a personal pilot and an entire cabin crew. One day, Sukarno asked Cindy, "Do you know why I am writing this autobiography? It is only because of you." He said that Cindy was very smart and interesting. He praised her clothes every day. Cindy began to feel that he was nothing like the Hitler of Asia people described him to be. Many times, Sukarno would casually touch Cindy's hand while talking. Once, there was even a moment when Sukarno tried to kiss Cindy, but Cindy made it clear that she was very happy in her married life. Sukarno accepted this and said that he understood, but they could at least remain friends. The interviews continued for several months. Cindy noticed many changes in Sukarno. He started becoming more personal and informal with her. Gradually, he became funny and cheerful just like Cindy. Earlier, he always wore military uniforms, but now he began dressing casually. Sometimes he even walked around barefoot. Sukarno had grown very close to Cindy. One night, he asked Cindy about the color of her hair. Cindy replied, "Maybe blue-black?" Sukarno said that he wanted exactly the same color for his hair. Cindy thought he was joking, but then Sukarno invited her to his palace. Cindy herself applied the color to Sukarno's hair. Now, both of them had exactly the same hair color. In 1965, the book was published. Its title was Sukarno, an autobiography as told by Cindy Adams. The book became a huge success. For people in the West, it was a big surprise because the book presented Sukarno's personality as that of a charming and lovable man. He was no longer seen as a dictator. And this was exactly what Sukarno wanted, the sympathy of the Western world and the love of the Indonesian people. At that time, the Indonesian government was on the verge of being overthrown by the military. Undoubtedly, this book changed people's thinking and perception of their president. He became more liked and even more popular than before. In the end, his seduction tactic worked. But why did he choose Cindy Adams for all this? There were 3 reasons. First, she was not a well-known journalist and had very little experience. She allowed her professional relationship to become personal and informal. Second, she was from the West. People in America and Europe could easily trust what she wrote. And third, she was a woman. Sukarno observed Cindy very carefully, understood her, and gradually began to become like her. She was funny, interesting, and friendly, so he became exactly the same way. He even went so far as to change the color of his hair to match hers.
By doing this, he broke down his target's defense system and she began to open up to him. He always addressed Cindy's complaints and fulfilled her needs, making her feel comfortable. In Cindy's eyes, he was no longer like Hitler, but had become an attractive, caring, and friendly person, and it was this very image that she presented to the world through her book. Now that's all for today. We'll meet again very soon in our next audiobook. Until then, keep our channel subscribed. Good night.